Good morning, one and all. How the devil are you doing this fun day? You're going to press a button there to signify that Jim Turner has just arrived. Morning, everyone. How are we? How was your weekend? I am a man barely awake this morning. Had a sickly dog in the night, and she's actually asleep under my desk at the moment. So if you can hear snoring, it's not me, although I could quite easily nod off. It is the dog below the table. Chris Ford, good morning, gang. Happy Monday. For once, the lorries are under control. Good man. Good man. Maybe they're starting to learn, eh? So Chris Ford's here. Jim Turner's here. Mark Whiting is here. Gary Muirhead is here. Dan Cullen was here early doors, but he seems to have gone away again. But I'm sure he'll be back in the fullness of time. If you were here on Friday, you may recall that I was signing off early because I was taking part in a panel discussion about safety in journalism. How's this for timely and prescient? So the conversation was, basically I'd been contacted because of my run-in with a couple of guys who turned up and threatened to beat me up on my doorstep, and the fact that I'd had an online stalker for a while. So that was why I was approached to take part. But more than happy to assist. But the conversation revolved or moved on to talk of authoritarianism and the control of the freedom of the press, particularly in the US of A. So we had a good old chinwag about that, the fact that I'm going to America fairly soon, and, I make no great secret of my feelings towards Mr. Trump and his ilk. Anyway, we went on about it, and, am I concerned about going to America? Well, more concerned than I should be, blah, 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 blah. Signed off. Switched on the computer, went over to Substack, which is where Demolition Insider is hosted, and there is the news that in America on Thursday night, Friday morning, 4 American journalists had been arrested. Yeah, it's a real thing, people. It really is. The weird thing about it, and I promise I'm going to say good morning to Ken Hatcher, by the way, and Mick as well. Mick Norton's here as well. Good morning, Mick. Good morning, Ken. I will press your respective buttons. I can do Ken's because it's looking at me right now. What I find strange is the fact that this is a thing that I've been dealing with for quite some time. This notion of being at the mercy of the great and powerful. Basically, I'm largely ostracized from the mainstream demolition industry these days because I call a spade, basically. And that's something I've had to deal with. Now, in terms of viewership and readership and following, it's done me no harm at all. People still seem to appreciate the fact that I will take an independent view and I won't just bend the knee and tell the world the story that others would like me to tell. I'll tell the story as it really is. But it doesn't make life any easier. It really doesn't. Despite the fact that, we are far and away the biggest demolition channel in the entire world, to be ostracized by parts of it makes it tough. Does make it tough. Anyway, all of that aside, that's my own personal issues. We've got loads to get through today. Obviously, it's the first day of February, and Dan Cullen, no pressure whatsoever, said this when we were doing the 4-minute countdown. He said, 4 minutes to go, first show of February 26th. Let's show them how it's done. No pressure then, Dan, but thank you for that. Yeah, let's show them how it's done. As I say, loads to get through, so without further ado, let me roll the intro. And, hang on a minute, so something's just popped up. That's it. That's gone away, whatever it was. Let me roll the intro and post the question of there is no question of the day. I'm going to roll the intro and get the show on the road. Ken Hatcher says, yes, I think Trump is watching the show. He's a big fan. He doesn't agree with everything I say, but he's a big fan. Morning, Don. How's the Epstein files looking, me old mate? Not good, I would guess. What sort of protection does the press have, and is the law on your side? Yeah. Okay, so a couple of things very quickly, and I don't want to get caught up in this because this is my problem, not your problem, but very quickly. all of the journalists that were arrested, I think all of the ones that were arrested in America were all independent. If you're part of a media company, chances are you've got a legal department and everything else. If the old Bill came and arrested me now, I have nobody. I don't have a lawyer. I don't have a publishing company to fight my corner. I would just have to fight it myself. So, does it have a protection? The one thing I would say about the high profile one on Thursday night, Friday morning, was a guy called Don Lemon. Used to be an anchor at CNN. He was arrested, as I say, after being at the Grammy Awards, and one of the things that was most striking about it, which given the current state of the US, he probably shouldn't be a huge surprise. But apparently, the administration had gone to a court and said, "We want a warrant to arrest this man because he was recording a protest in a church in Minneapolis." And the court said, "No, he's done nothing wrong. He wasn't interfering. He wasn't infringing on anyone's human rights or anything like that. No, we're not going to do that." So the administration basically went in and sought out a more friendly judge who gave them the warrant, and then they arrested him. As soon as it was put before a judge, it was free without no bail necessary. Just go on your way. So it is a very, very sketchy time, to be honest. Chris Ford says, what does Chris Ford say? Does this mean by listening to you we're black sheep as well? Forward with the flock. In some ways, yeah, I guess you are. Can I tell you something? And this is how bizarre things are at times. I am told, and I do mean this regularly. I mean, I'm at the Institute of Demolition Engineers spring seminar in whatever it is, 3 weeks' time, and I'll be mixing with the great and the good, and I guarantee at some point somebody will say, "Oh, you're Mark Anthony. You're a Breakfast Show." Yeah, I watch all the time. I don't comment because I don't want people to know that I'm watching. That's a real thing. That's a real thing. It's almost like being seen as conniving with the enemy. That's how they view it, because there's a journalist doing journalistic-y things. Yeah. I've always been the black sheep, says Jim, so I feel right at home. Good. Glad you do. It's no different to the bought and paid for political judges we have in the UK. No, it's not. It's not. But when you go to a judge and say, I want a warrant for this man's arrest, and the judge goes, "You have no grounds." The answer isn't, "Well, I'll find a judge that believes there is grounds." The answer should be, "Oh, fair enough. We'll let it slide." No, not at all. So much for freedom of speech. Where has it gone? Yeah. It's been playing on my mind, not just the freedom of speech. So, Fred was playing squash yesterday. On the way back, we called into our local McDonald's drive-through. But rather than driving through, we decided, "Oh, sod it, we'll go in and have a bite to eat." So went in, and there was a bunch of about 5 or 6 teenagers, probably 14, 15 years old. Way too loud, way too sweary, but whatever. And they had in front of them a big pile of paper serviettes. And at one point, one of them went up to the counter to get more of these serviettes. Now, they must have had 100, 150, maybe even 200 of these serviettes. But anyway, the guy behind the counter saw what they were doing and said, no more serviettes, be on your way. So they went outside, they rolled up these serviettes, set fire to them like a half-assed Olympic torch, and then stuffed them in a bin where they set the bin on fire. And they did that knowing full well that they would face no retribution or punishment whatsoever. I watched it happen and did nothing. Probably not my place to, but I did nothing. Fred did nothing. Guy behind the counter at McDonald's did nothing. The manager at McDonald's did nothing. And then once they'd gone out, these Herberts legged it, and the bin's on fire. So a couple of guys from McDonald's went out, a bucket of water, put the fire out, and then phoned the police. And the police arrived and had a look at the smouldering bin and whatever, and off they went. And that apparently is an acceptable thing now. We just stand around and allow that to happen. A couple of months ago, I may have mentioned this, a couple of months ago, Fred was in our local high street. Now, bear in mind, Fred goes about 6'1". He's a big lad. He's a big, stocky guy. Somebody's coming the other way. He's walking on the path, and there's somebody coming the other way on one of these electric bikes. Snatched a mobile phone from a woman and tried to grab Fred's. Fred had the presence of mind to turn his back, and they missed him. But they're not content with having snatched a mobile phone. They went down to the end of the road, crossed over, went back up the other way, up the high street the other way, and did the same thing again. And there's an entire high street of people watching this play out. Now, when I said to Fred, could you not have, drop kicked the bugger or, just taken him off the bike and everything else? He said, well, what if the guy was carrying a knife? Which is fair comment. But if you've got a high street full of men and women, but predominantly men in this case, could they not have done something? Did anyone see the footage from Richmond over the weekend? Richmond is only, 5 miles up the road from where I'm sat right now. Two guys, broad daylight, sledgehammer, bashing in the front of a jeweler store and making off with the stuff they could grab out the window. And there's dozens of people standing around filming it. Not one intervened. That apparently is where we are. Dan says, that's funny, but you can see they're watching. Well, see, not always. Not always. I can see them if people comment, but I don't necessarily, I mean, I don't check on a daily basis because I'm not that anal, but I can't, let me put it like this, that I am stunned the number of times somebody says, oh, in that episode where you were talking about so-and-so, and I think, well, A, I don't remember talking about so-and-so, but B, you didn't actually mention the fact that you were here. Now, they may have watched on catch-up, in which case I wouldn't see them anyway. But there are people watching right now that if they don't chat, I will not know about it. I will know nothing about it. Going back even further, I used to check where I was being watched from. And on a daily basis, I'm being watched from Worthing and from Hemel Hempstead. Well, Worthing is the Worthing Advertiser, and Hemel Hempstead is where the NFDC are. Daily basis, there's somebody watching from both of those locations. In all likelihood, it's somebody from one of those organisations, but they never make themselves known. But I understand through comments back from other people, that's exactly what's going on. I was born a black sheep and I'll die one too. Good for you, mate. We are constantly being monitored. Ain't that the truth? Kids are getting away with everything now. Yeah. And I realise this is a bloody cliche, but got to blame the parents. There's a gang last night of, as I say, 5, 6, maybe even 7 of these Herberts out. It was about 10 o'clock last night. Presumably they'd be at school today, assuming they bothered to attend. And they're going around setting fire to stuff. Where are their parents, do you reckon? This is a problem, no control, consequences for their actions. Yeah. I mean, how many videos, and I promise I will start the show in a moment, how many of these videos have you seen on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, of people walking into supermarkets, filling a trolley or filling a bag up with stuff, generally high value stuff, so bottles of booze and stuff. So they're not doing it out of desperation or hunger, they're doing it because it makes money. And there are supermarket security guards basically stood there watching it happen, because I'm assuming those security guards have been told, you're here purely to act as a deterrent, but do not get involved. So you've got a shop full of people. I mean, if I go to my local Sainsbury's, there'll be 30, 40, 50 people in there at any given time. And we would all stand there and watch people helping themselves? I don't believe I would. I really don't. If they got 3 lashes each in Market Square on a Saturday morning, they wouldn't have done it. Consequences, what keeps society in line. Yeah, and we've lost that. I mean, listen, I'm not advocating here for going out and whipping children, but maybe every once in a while to remind people who is actually in charge here. Not a bad idea. You wouldn't do these sort of things years ago with fear of bringing the police to your door. The beating your father would give you. not just your father. This is a confession of sorts. I lived on a road that was lined with horse chestnut trees, conker trees, for the less well-initiated. And, we used to play conkers, whacking, but we also used to throw them at each other because, boys be boys and stuff like that. I threw a conker across a road, like just an average road, and it hit the windscreen of a car. I didn't do it on purpose. I was aiming for my mate, but a car sort of came into my line of sight, hit the windscreen. The bloke slammed on the brakes, came over and whacked me across the back of the head. I was probably 12, 13. So I'm sat on the floor thinking, well, that seems a bit harsh. And a police car pulled up. And I thought, justice will be served. Officer, I have been assaulted. And the officer in question said, what happened? And the bloke said, well, I was driving my car, minding my own business, and this twat here threw a conker that hit my windscreen. So the policeman hit me as well. True story. And I couldn't go home and say to my dad, a local man and a police officer have just hit me. Why did they hit you? Because I threw a conker at a windscreen, because he would have fucking hit me and all. Jesus. All goes back to when they stopped capital punishment in school. You learn to respect or face the consequences. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. My rear end can still feel the sting of the slipper and the cane and the ruler and stuff. Dan says that shouldn't be. You should be able to see who's in your show. Benefit Britain parents rather hover up than keep the control of the kids. Listen, I'm bearing in mind. And I'm not overplaying it. I'm not sat here on a vast personal fortune, but I live in Surrey, one of the most affluent and wealthy areas of the country. Some of the wealthiest people in the entire country live right here. I'm not one of them, but so we've got a very good standard of living. Nice houses and good schools and all of the things, and yet that's happening here. So what is happening in the other bits of the country? You see, a woman was jailed for an Asda security worker died due to her assault, and he had a heart defect. Oh, good Lord. 2 slaps and a conker. Yeah, a conker of a different type, but yeah. Anyway, should we crack on? Because we are nearly 20 minutes in and I've done nothing. Let's crack on with a bit of Caterpillar, and then we're back to John Deere again. Now, we're kind of doing this a bit out of order, but bear with me. I'll explain exactly why. If you were here on Friday, you may recall that we brought you details of the fact that the fine folks at John Deere are planning a new line of excavators. Well, you don't just willy-nilly invent and produce a brand new line of excavators. You need the infrastructure basically to build them. So you need factory space. So not only are they investing in the development of new excavators, they're investing in the factory as well. Take a look.
What this does is it's going to allow us to support small excavators like we've never been able to before. We get to make them fully fully Deere. Allows us to control our own destiny, not only from a product technology perspective, but also a capacity perspective as well. Initial plans for a single shift operation almost double what we're currently able to supply, but we have the ability to grow beyond that should we have the need.
The speed of the project really communicates the confidence that we have in the new product that we're building.
We're going to go from groundbreaking to certificate of occupancy in a period of 13 months on a nearly 400,000 square foot facility.
Right now, we need to make sure the product is right. We're going to get our manufacturing process in place prior to being ready to go to market with our product so that when it's ready, we can just turn on the spigot and go.
I'll tell you what, I'm incredibly proud of this team. We have something very special here at John Deere Kernersville.
For 36 years, this team has been working their tail off. This is pretty rewarding to see a project of this size being given this team who's earned the right to grow.
I'm surprised they chose Kernersville, but I'm glad they did because this company means a lot to this community as well.
This is a testament to everybody that we're reinvesting into North America production. This product is currently made overseas. We're now going to be making it right here in Kernersville, North Carolina. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. We're estimating about 150 new local jobs with room to grow.
This project is an obvious investment in our employees. And I'm super proud of our team, super proud to be part of it, and it's a really great time to be in Kernersville.
Am I in? I was born for this.
She was born for this shit. Looking forward to meeting her at some point. Let's have a look. John Deere, come here and build a factory in the UK and get us some of your kit. Would be nice, wouldn't it? Now, Dan also goes on and says, now here's a question on ADTs. Why do they put cabs up front and engine and a hydraulic between the cab and body? Could that not be different and probably better? Listen, far be it from me to question the foresight and the intelligence of the likes of Volvo and Komatsu and Caterpillar and so on down the line. I don't know. It's a good question. If anybody is out there able to answer that, including Gary Major, if Gary is watching, why are ADTs like ADTs? We're crushing in a moment after this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
We don't feature crushers particularly often on this show. Largely they are big stuff in one end and little stuff out the other, which, I realise it's vital, but not the most interesting. Thought I'd make an exception with this one, though. Railway sleepers being crushed really rather efficiently. Well, that worked. No mistake about that. Very quickly, Dan says, I'm loading a McCloskey J40, very powerful. Now, there's another question. What's the other question, Dan? Why do crushers have a hole in them? I don't know. Let us know. What is the most efficient crusher out there? Oh, that is a good question. I think that one, there will be people in the audience that know this sort of stuff way better than I. But I think you need to be a bit more specific on the question because there are differences. You've got impact crushers, you've got jaw crushers, you've got rotary crushers, and so on down the line. Rather depends what type of material you're crushing. Jaw crusher, which was, I'm assuming, the type we just saw there. My vote would probably be for Sandvik or Metso or somebody like that. But if anybody else has got any thoughts on that, I'd love to hear from you. While you're mulling that over, let me do this, because we're talking waste with Caterpillar in a moment.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Dan reiterates his question. What is the best jaw crusher? As I say, my vote would go probably for Sandvik or for Metso, something like that. But there are plenty of others out there if anybody's got any thoughts on that. And he also says, was LC International in touch yet? No, not heard from them yet. Apparently, whatever news it is they have that they're going to share with me and therefore with you, it's been delayed. But I'll be keeping you. I'll keep you posted, Dan. If I hear from them, you'll be the first to know. Caterpillar, Vision Link, waste, all coming together in one film like this.
My name is Michael Miller. Today we're going to talk to you about Vision Link and waste. Increase the lifespan of your landfill by maximising your compaction rate utilises real-time elevation-based compaction algorithms coupled with Vision Link monitoring to help ensure consistent waste density across every layer and ensure proper grade control, eliminating inefficiently compacted areas and over or under building grades. Cut costs by reducing unnecessary machine passes, saving fuel, increase machine utilisation and minimising equipment wear. Improve engineering accuracy with proper trash layering, proper grade control and managed watershed. And when it comes to decision making, stay informed. Instantly know when target density is reached and identify performance issues in real time, helping you optimise daily operations. VisionLink provides you with a wealth of information about your site's operations, allowing you to make well-informed management decisions. To find out more, contact your local CAT dealer or visit cat.com.
Easy to dismiss waste as just tipping rubbish into a big hole in the ground. Way more scientific than that. And Caterpillar are at both ends of it. Obviously, the compaction side with and now with Vision Link to make sure they're maximising the compaction levels and everything else. But also Caterpillar at the forefront of taking methane that comes off rotting waste and decomposing waste and turning it into electricity. So yeah, Caterpillar at the forefront. Probably doesn't come as any great surprise. Dan says, keep your ears peeled. They'll be in touch. He said he was going to come on today, but they're quite busy at the moment. Not a problem at all. There's plenty of machines that have the same layout because mechanics of yesteryear meant they had to be like that. But now they can be reconfigured to be safer and more efficient. I was thinking that, and I know Dan, not Dan, Jim, I know you're constantly thinking about new machines and stuff. When you think about machines of old, you know, we had kind of limited ability with particularly steel. It was far easier to have box-shaped metals because, you know, bending steel is a bit of a ball ache and so on. Much the same with glass. You know, we always traditionally had flat glass. Now we have curved glass windows for greater visibility and everything else. Given the the advances in metallurgy and the materials that we have at our disposal, you would have thought by now that somebody would have gone, actually, we designed it like that because it had to be straight lines. Could we not do something better now? You think? Dan says, would you want to contact Finning? I'd be on the fence there. I'd be on the fence as well. Yeah, it pains me to say it. It does pain me to say it, but I don't. Sorry, Finning, but I don't hear any good news about your company, particularly about after-sales service, which has long been a real strength of Caterpillar and its dealer network. Maybe it's the position I hold. Maybe I just attract the naysayers and the doom mongers and stuff, but I just seem to hear nothing but bad reports. It's a habit. It's habit rather, and lack of confidence that stop them being reconfigured. Yeah, in the wider world, not in the construction equipment industry, although I'm sure they take place there, but in the wider world where we offer financial incentives to go away and design a thing. I saw one recently with a young girl. I don't know whether she was British or American or where she was from, but she designed a pair of earrings. Excuse me, I got a right tickle this morning. Designed a pair of earrings with cameras in them, bit like a dash cam, but predominantly for young women, basically. So if a woman is the subject of an assault, those earrings, like a dash cam, will have recorded her attacker. It's a terrible world we live in where people haven't designed that. But this young girl, and I think she was a schoolgirl, basically won a design prize. Would it not be an idea to have a design prize within the construction industry? Not necessarily just designers, but people like your gyms and people that are operating the machines. Take a look around you. Take a look at the machines that you're operating. Take a look at the machines that you've operated in the past, and come up with something that is either a variation on a theme, something totally new, something that nobody's thought about, and we will offer a prize for that. You'd have thought somebody would have done that by now, wouldn't you? If there's any manufacturers out there listening to this and you'd like to do that, let me know. Let's have a look. No, we did that one. No, we did that one. Good. We're right up to date. And where are we? Where are we indeed? We've done that. We've done that. We've done that. Okay, it is time to think about Las Vegas, which is basically a month away now. This time in 4 weeks, I will be waking up, looking out the window of the Luxor Hotel, hopefully at the sunny landscape of ConExpo and Las Vegas itself. I'm heading to Nevada, as you are all aware. Now, one of the companies taking part, there are many more, I think 2,000 exhibitors, something like that. One of the companies taking part will be the crane company, Manitowoc. We've got a bit of a preview from them right now.
Here at Manitowoc, we're turning the page from a technological stance, and I'm really excited about it, and I think the customers will be as well.
When you see a Manitowoc crane or a Grove crane, you're seeing history. There's a lot of pride that goes into it.
Even in my 21 years of being here, it was one of the coolest prototype reveals that I've seen. I think the industry is going to stand up and take notice.
The people that work for Manitowoc, they live and breathe this company. They live and breathe this product. They take pride in what they do.
It's a real tight-knit group of guys and gals, and we all stand behind the customer 100%.
We're there with our customers through the entire life of the crane. We can upgrade the engines, we can upgrade the technologies, but it all depends on what the customer wants. We find a way to make their life easier. That's success. It's success for us and for our customer.
What they do with our products is not just a tool to them, but it's a livelihood.
We don't create a product and then try to find the problem that it fixes. We listen to our customers and we go out to the customer. We talk to the customer and see what the customers are experiencing.
There's not a lot of layers between our engineering team and the end customers, and that feedback gets directly back right from the customer's mouth to our engineers.
We're innovative, But we don't just drop what people have known forever. You want to gradually increase everything that can give the customer a full experience and make his job easier on the job site.
Customers want more visibility on the job sites, and that could be cameras, wind speed indication.
Wanting lighter, longer, stronger units, getting them into locations that would typically require bigger cranes.
So with this new product, one of the things that we focused on was being operator-centric. The comfortability, the visibility, all the features that we have making the operator's life easier.
I think it's going to be a splash, both from the crane side and the technical advancements.
We're really excited to show this off in Las Vegas. I can't think of a better place to show something that's big, bold, and real.
Yeah, Manitowoc, or I think they own Potain, which I'm sure you have seen. I know Dan says never heard of them. They're a big deal. They really are. Jim, going back to the design and stuff, he says, I'm game. I just need paying right, and they'll have a designer, operator, and fabricator, all for one wage. I think you're selling yourself short, but I take your point. If I'm looking out the window, at Ken, normally when I stay at the Luxor, I'm somewhere around about the 16th, 17th, 18th floor of one of the two towers. If I can see Ken from there, well, my glasses I've got the wrong prescription, or Ken, what are you doing outside my bedroom window? Weird. We are at 10:33 a.m. Okay, so in 4 weeks and 6 hours or thereabouts, I'll be looking out at the strip. I'd be interested to see, because last time I was there, we were there about 2 weeks before they demolished the Tropicana Hotel, which was directly opposite, kind of in my line of sight, looking out the window of the Luxor down the strip. It's gone. It was blown up. I don't know what's going to be there, but looking forward to seeing that. And also, when we were there last as well for Minexpo, they'd started to demolish the Mirage Hotel down the far end of the strip from the Luxor, kind of next door to Caesar's Palace and the Bellagio. Well, that's going to be the new Hard Rock hotel, which is going to be in the shape of a guitar in a big base and a neck tower thing. That's being built as we speak. I don't know how far along they are with that, but I'll be taking a bit of a walk past that and see exactly where they are. Anyway, people, that is pretty much it for the main part of today's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like into my morning monologue, which, incidentally, was inspired by, well, basically all of you, but predominantly Ken Hatcher, talking about the fact that he wasn't feeling quite right last week. Been thinking about health. Not mine, yours. That's what the morning monologue is about. So if you can't stick around for that, please stay safe, look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Take on board that. Look after yourself. It'll become clear in a moment. I hope to see you again very soon, but if you do have the time and the inclination, I shall return immediately after this. Be kind. Everyone you meet is going through a battle you know nothing about. It's a phrase I'm sure you've seen. It appears on inspirational posters and T-shirts. It's plastered on office walls. While it speaks volumes about modern society that we need to be reminded to display kindness, it does remain good advice, which is why the phrase has been adopted by those who move in mental health circles. The suggestion is that no matter how cheerful and positive someone might appear, they might be battling inner demons you know nothing about. But those demons may not be purely mental. They might be physical. And in our desire to understand and accommodate mental health issues within the demolition and construction industry, I think we're in danger of sidelining the physical health of our workforce, overlooking issues that are in fact more prevalent and potentially more deadly. In recent years, the industry has rightly focused its attention on safety and mental health within the workplace. We've become pretty adept at mitigating the immediate risks of the site, and we're finally beginning to address the devastating rate of suicide within the trade. However, Between those two vital areas of concern lies a vast and largely neglected middle ground. We've mastered the art of managing occupational diseases like mesothelioma or silicosis that are caused directly by the work environment. Yet we remain functionally blind to the lifestyle diseases that this industry's very structure makes almost inevitable. Conditions like heart disease, liver disease, kidney failure, and type 2 diabetes are often dismissed as personal issues. Yet they are the direct biological consequence of how the demolition and construction sector is organised. The most significant barrier to physical health in our sector is not a lack of personal will, but a lack of economic opportunity. The industry relies heavily on a no work, no pay system of remuneration. Whether a worker is a sole trader or a subcontractor, the reality here is stark. If your boots aren't on the ground, the money isn't in your bank. In that environment, a visit to the GP is not a simple and necessary task. A visit to the GP is not a simple and necessary task. It's a financial penalty. When a worker notices a persistent pain or a worrying change in their physical stamina, they're faced with a cold calculation. A GP appointment requires a morning off, travel time, and the potential for a follow-up. For many, that represents a loss of half a day's wages, a health tax that many families simply can't afford to pay. So consequently, the early warning signs of chronic conditions are ignored until they become emergencies. By the time a worker is forced to seek medical help, a manageable condition has often evolved into something far more serious. This economic pressure is compounded by the physical infrastructure we provide our workforce. Demolition and construction sites are, by their nature, transient and often lack the basic health supporting facilities found in almost any other professional sector. Think about it from a food perspective. A worker in a corporate office has access to refrigeration, microwaves, and a variety of healthy food options. A demolition worker is often lucky to have a kettle in a damp hut. This leads to a forced reliance on convenience, high sodium petrol station snacks, energy drinks to combat chronic fatigue, and high fat takeaway food. And when that diet is sustained over a 30-year career, the biological toll is entirely predictable. High salt intake leads to hypertension, high sugar leads to insulin resistance, and chronic dehydration is often a result of workers being reluctant to drink water due to poor site facilities. We're essentially asking our workforce to perform like athletes while providing the nutritional support of a sedentary teenager. And perhaps the most harrowing aspect of this overlooked crisis is the chemical crutch. When our bodies begin to break down, usually through musculoskeletal injuries, workers face a brutal choice: stop to heal and lose income, or mask the pain and continue. The use of prescription painkillers, particularly opioids and high-strength anti-inflammatories, has become a functional necessity for many on the industry's front line. This isn't about toughing it out to prove a point. It's a desperate survival mechanism used to keep the body functioning long enough to pay the mortgage and to support a family. Pain is the body's alarm system. By muting that alarm with medication, workers often cause irreversible structural damage to their joints and their organs. And furthermore, the reliance on these medications to get through a 10-hour shift can quietly spiral into dependency. We're witnessing a potential epidemic of addiction born out of a professional necessity, yet the industry remains largely silent on the matter. And that silence has given rise to the belief that male demolition and construction workers don't talk about their physical and mental health through stoicism or macho culture. But that is shifting the blame onto the sufferer. They're not remaining silent about health issues to be manly. They're doing it to keep earning money that they so desperately need. In any demolition project, plant and machinery is subject to rigorous, pre-planned maintenance schedules. But we don't apply that same logic to the human beings actually operating the machines. We treat the workforce as an infinitely renewable resource that requires no maintenance until it suffers a total breakdown. This is not only a moral failing, but a commercial one as well. A worker who's forced into early retirement at 50 due to preventable heart disease or chronic physical pain represents a massive loss of individual skill, invaluable skill, and experience for the industry. We're effectively borrowing health from a worker's future to pay for today's productivity. And eventually, that debt will be called in. We constantly use the term health and safety in this industry, but there's a very real danger that we've become so focused on the safety part that we've lost sight of the health part. We all know the dangers of working at height and in close proximity to heavy equipment. So rather than repeating that same message ad nauseum in every toolbox talk or pre-start briefing, perhaps we could occasionally take a moment to check on the health of those present. A heart attack is potentially every bit as deadly as a fall. Should they not be given equal levels of attention? I said at the beginning that everyone is going through a battle that we know nothing about, and let me assure you, this is 100% true. I've lost friends to heart and liver disease and to a variety of cancers. I knew nothing about any of them, and due to the nature of their work, some of the victims were also blissfully unaware until it was too late. I realise it goes against everything this industry stands for, but if you're a demolition or construction worker with a health concern, some worrying symptoms or a niggling pain, stop. Take the time. Consult your GP and get yourself checked. And if you're the employer of someone that needs time off to see their doctor, remember this. You can find the time for business lunches, golf days, meetings about meetings, and to attend business-related conferences and functions that serve no real purpose other than to socialise. Should you not extend that same courtesy to the workers who are keeping your business afloat? Because maybe the best thing you can do for your workforce is not to crack the whip or point at the clock. It's to grant them the time to heal. There you are. All inspired by Mr. Hatcher. There you are. Who has probably left by now, I would imagine. But there you are. That's what I would have to say about that. Chris Ford back on the crusher thing. Dan, for my money, the best crushers are Pegson R400X. Deal with a lot of tramp metal. We ran Sandvix X-Tech for years and were pleased with them. Also run Evo Quip Impacts. All good brands. I think if you really scratch the surface with a lot of these things, I wouldn't say they're all made by the same people, but they're within crushers, probably more than any other, maybe attachments. Crushers and attachments, there does seem to be like a family tree. When you look at, there's a bunch of crushing and screening equipment made in Ireland, Northern Ireland, I think. And when you really dig through it, it turns out, well, that company was the one that started it, but one of the guys left because he had a falling out with his uncle, and he started another company, and they're doing exactly the same thing. And then he had a falling out with his son, so he started another company over, and so it goes on. Attachments are exactly the same. I think if you scratch the surface, you could well be talking about the same thing. And yes, X-Tech, I mean, obviously X-Tech was, where were they made? Biggleswade. Was it Biggleswade? No, that's Lee Bear. Can't remember where they were based. I went there plenty of times. Where were they? Swaddling Coat. Yeah, Swaddling Coat. Up in Jim Turner and Chris Ford part of the world. Swaddling Coat is where they were. And obviously taken over by Sandvik. Yeah. A decade or more ago, I would imagine. I can't actually remember when that would have been, but I know it's a while since. So yes, crushers. There you are. Going back to the health thing. You will know that back end of last year, I attended a funeral of an old mate of mine, and I won't go over the whole details of it. But basically, he died from leukemia. He went to the doctors with a bad leg. He had pain in his leg, and being of the demolition industry, he'd put it off, and he'd put it off. And when he got there, they said, "Oh yeah, I can see exactly what that is. That's leukemia. You've got about 4 weeks left to live." Now, I'm not suggesting that sort of niggling pains in your knees and your hips and stuff like that are necessarily terminal. But if you do have a pain, seriously, guys, I don't often go fully serious, but on this occasion, I'm going to. If you do have a niggling pain, find the time. Find the time. Your boss, your employer, your site will just have to whistle for a while, because you think about it from a long-term perspective. You muddle through and you take a few painkillers and it eases the pain, and you carry on. But by the time you get to the doctors, I mean, even something like knee pain, which I know is something that machine operators suffer from, that lumping down out of a machine, hits your knees, hits your pelvis, hits your hips. So you have a bit of knee pain. And you could have gone to the doctors and maybe had a cortisone injection, or maybe had some sort of jollop applied, or whatever it might be, but you didn't. You chose not to do that. And now, by the time you do get around to going to the doctor says, "Well, there's only one opportunity, one possible resolution now: knee replacement." Well, knee replacement, take it from somebody that knows people that have had knee replacements, hurts like a motherfucker. I'll tell you, one of my wife's friends needs 2 doing. Now, bear in mind, this is a woman that gave birth to 4 children. She knows what pain's about. She had one done, and she is refusing to get the other one done because the pain was so excruciating. That's what you're looking at. Ben, the operator's just joined us over on Instagram. Morning, Ben. I haven't seen you for a while. Haven't seen you since Munich, probably. There I was, filming away, minding my own business. Ben. Morning, Ben. Dan is saying, "Ken, did you go to the docks?" My guess is that Ken has probably left by now. But I will check with him. I mean, it's not my job, but I will check with him. It's not worth it, guys. It really isn't. You put these things off and put them off, and when you finally get around to dealing with them, you may be dealing with something much, much worse. This is the problem with this industry. You go to the docks, have a few days off, and they replace you in a heartbeat. Yeah. I mentioned in there, and I do think it's something that gets overlooked far too easily and far too often. If indirectly, accidentally, you have put in place a workplace environment that doesn't prevent, but kind of makes it hard for people to take time off and go and see their doctor, and their knee pain, their hip pain, their back pain gets worse and worse and worse. They might end up taking too many prescription drugs, which is not good for health and safety, not good for their health and safety, not good for the site's health and safety. They could end up getting worse and worse and worse. And as I said, you could get to 50 years old and literally be unable to do the job. You can't get in and out of a machine. Walking across a bumpy site is too much for you, and you have to retire. Now, on the face of it, you're losing a warm body. Yeah, okay, we'll get somebody in to replace them. Can you? Can you actually? Can you get somebody with the same experience, knowledge, wisdom, understanding of your company procedures, understanding of the machine that they have been operating for the last 2 or 3 years, understanding of your maintenance schedules, understanding of your work practices and methodologies? Probably not. It is remarkably short term in its outlook. It is literally like, and I hate to compare living, breathing people with machines, but a lot of people now buy machines. They'll spend whatever it is, $250,000 or whatever on an excavator, and they will take out a maintenance contract. So they have somebody, a professional, come and give that machine a once over every 6 months. They feed it with the finest fuels, which are heavily filtered. They feed it with the finest lubricants and oils and stuff, because they've spent a lot of money on that, and they want to keep it running, and they want to get their maximum return on it. If you employ a decent operator for the next 20, 30 years, you're probably investing £1 million overall in wages and pensions and sick pay and all the benefits that go with it. I'm talking about directly employed people here. You're investing £1 million in a person, but you won't give them the time to go and be maintained by a GP or a dentist or a whatever. And the demands of your site, rather than I'm not saying that every site should have an occupational nurse. I'm not saying every site should have a site canteen with a 3-star Michelin chef. But if you are only allowing your workers 15 minutes for lunch, what is available to them? Greg's sausage roll? I mean, they might bring something themselves. I know Gary's rather better taken care of, but sandwiches. How many sandwiches can you eat over a career before you? Well, either get bored, or B, they start to have a detrimental effect on your health. And it is a demanding job. You can't get by mentally, physically, health-wise on a diet of shit. It's going back to the machine analogy. You could have invested in a top of the range, an absolute top-notch Liebherr, Caterpillar, Volvo excavator, absolutely top-notch, the bee's knees, all the bells and whistles. But if you're putting shit fuel into that, trust me, that thing's going to break down and it's going to let you down. Well, guess what? Same thing applies with people. And allowing them another 15 minutes and making sure they've got access to clean running water, or clean drinking water, more to the point, and that they've got time to heal, and they've got the facility and the capability to complain about, or not even complain. I think I need to make it clear, all of the talk all the things I was talking about, liver disease, heart disease, diabetes, they're not the responsibility of the employer. And I am not for one moment suggesting that they are. They are not the responsibility. But the responsibility of the employer is to allow the employee the time to deal with those things. And that's not the way it works at the moment. I think it was Dan said last week, he's working ridiculous hours, Monday to Friday. Can he get a GP appointment on a Saturday? No, he can't. So, ultimately, it's not just a case of giving up half a day's money to go to the GP. There's the convenience factor as well. And particularly if you're working away from home. By the time you get home at the weekend, GP surgery is closed. So you muddle through. I wonder, and I did try to find some figures on this, but I couldn't. I wonder how many people are medicating chronic pain, niggling pain, medical conditions, either with painkillers or potentially even with booze. How many people are on site now and they're suffering with some sort of medical condition, and they've self-diagnosed and they're self-medicating? And given the fact that we know that the use and abuse of drugs and alcohol is rife in this industry, yes, there will be some people that go out on a weekend, get a bit carried away, and that recreational drug use, recreational alcohol use, I take that. I wonder how many people are actually over the drug and alcohol, the drug limit on prescription drugs, just to get through a working day, just to get through a working week, just to keep the money rolling in. Problem is, the bills don't stop when the money does. Yeah. And again, I tried, couldn't find the figures for it, because I think it's kind of taken place, I wouldn't say in secret, but it's taken place under cover to a degree. This move to no work, no pay, 0-hour contract, effectively working through agencies and stuff like that. I wonder how many of those men and women are suffering with health issues because they dare not and cannot afford to take time off to deal with a health problem. I wonder. And these medicals they do are only minor. They don't give you a thorough health check, and never ask you how they are. Everything okay? No checkup if you're working with them for a while. No. Do you know the one thing I would say, and I this is not the way to go about it. So don't anybody follow my lead. But I've been weirdly fortunate. I when I got the whack on the head, I ended up in hospital. When I had a burst appendix, I ended up in hospital. When I had sepsis twice, I ended up in hospital. On all 4 occasions, I had scans and MRIs and blood tests and urine tests and Lord alone knows what other tests. By the time I left hospital on each occasion, I'd been given the most thorough MOT known to mankind. Now, as I say, I'm not saying go get yourself a dose of sepsis. I'm not saying get a brick to the face so you can spend some time in hospital. But when are we allowed that time to actually go and have a proper look around? Yeah. I mean, I'm 61 in a few weeks' time. I'm past the point where, I've had the first of a number of prostate exams. Not a bundle of laughs, but not the worst thing I've ever had. I had an eye test this weekend. Need new glasses at some point in the not too distant future. I'm under the doctor for diabetes, and I get all of those things checked regularly. How many people out there in their 50s and the 60s, particularly men, are basically suffering? How many of you are not currently wearing glasses, but do find you're squinting a bit? And as a result, how many times do you find yourself getting to the end of the day with a bit of a headache, a bit of eye strain? How many of you doing that? How many of you get off a machine at night, having spent that long in the machine, you put your foot on the ground and you make that involuntary noise because you're all a bit stiff and stuff? There was a thing I read. I wish I'd kept it, but I was reading the thing while I was doing the prep for that, where they were talking about the medical advice for workers is what they refer to as the 20-20 rule. Nothing to do with your eyesight, but 20-20 rule. So if you do 20 minutes work, then take 20 minutes, have a drink, stand up, move around, look at something else other than a computer screen or a monitor in your cab or whatever it might be. Who in this industry has that luxury for 2020? Nobody. Have a fantastic time. Stay safe, stay happy. Look out for your colleagues. What was the last bit of that? Before you leave work, for people regret not saying that to their partner, never returning home after being in an accident. Yeah, and again, what is the? I've just mentioned eyesight and eye strain and so on. If you are potentially suffering with a bit of eye strain, and maybe you could do with glasses or contacts or laser correction or whatever it might be, and for one reason or another, you don't particularly want to go to get your eyes tested, or you haven't got the time to get your eyes tested, and then you miss something on site, and you injure yourself, you injure somebody else, you kill somebody else, you kill yourself, just because you couldn't find the time to go and get yourself sorted. It's not worth the risk, guys. It really isn't. And as I say, I'll just very quickly go back. I don't believe that the industry itself is responsible for liver disease, heart disease, kidney failure, diabetes, obesity. But I do think it could adjust the way that the industry works to make those things less prevalent. Ken is now over on Instagram. He just said, I try to jump out the cab every hour and get back in to straighten my back and legs. Yeah. I mean, what is the long-term effect of that? I mean, I know when I've done this, but by the time I've delivered this show, I've usually been sat here for 5 hours, thereabouts. By the time I've in actual fact, by the time I've finished this, chopped it up into its constituent parts, fired it over to YouTube and Instagram and everything else. I'm probably sat here for about 6 hours without moving. What is that doing to my back, my posture, my hips, my arse, my legs? You know, deep vein thrombosis and all that sort of stuff because I'm sat in the same position for hours on end. Ken has just said, I got a job to make an appointment at the doctor's now. Yes, make sure you do, Ken. We are holding you to account. Be the example. Get yourself a doctor's appointment. We don't want to know what's wrong with you. We don't want to know the outcome. We just want to know that you're okay. That's all. Apparently he's got e-consult now. Yeah, listen, I'm not entirely convinced by that. And I am a person that, moves in technological circles. But, I've got a mother-in-law who has got multiple sclerosis, can barely walk. I mean, really does struggle to walk. In the nicest possible way, early stages of dementia. And she can go months and months and months without seeing the doctor. Oh, we'll do it we'll do an online consultation. She's 82. How good is an online consultation? Whatever happened to that sitting down with the doctor? Doc, I've got this. While you're about it, can you have a look at this because I've got that as well? No, we don't do that. I mean, I heard something recently that the people are, and this is actually a friend of my mother-in-law, had booked a doctor's appointment for an issue, had gone in and said, oh, well, I've got this, and the doctor said, oh, yes, we'll have a look at that, check that over. And I said, well, while I'm here, can I just, and the doctor went, no, I can only deal with one thing. You've got an allocated time. You'll have to come back for that. The fuck is that about? Dan, hang on a minute, get to the right place. There's things happening here that I'm not happy about. They're turning a blind eye to it, which is ridiculous. But if you say something, you're replaced as a troublemaker. It's easy for me to say from the comfort of this office, but do you really want to work for a company that treats genuine concerns as troublemaking? Just saying. People, do me a favor, would you? When you get 5 minutes today, have a bit of a think about your current medical condition. Your back feel all right? Your legs feel all right? Your eyes okay? How's your hearing? Have you checked the plums lately? Had a bit of a route around down there? Make sure that's all okay. And if there's anything that you think, not absolutely happy with that, as a favour to me, as a favour to yourself, favour to your family and your friends, go and see someone, eh? Bollocks to what the boss says. Go and get yourself sorted. You can thank me for it later. And Gary saying, hope the dog gets better soon. She hasn't stopped snoring the entire show. In actual fact, she's currently laid on my left foot. I know you can't see this. She's laid on my left foot and I can feel the snore going up my shin. But she seems happy enough. I'll be back tomorrow if we get more of the same. Probably not on health-related matters, although it did occur to me I could literally do a series on health. I think you'd get bored before I'd finished it, to be honest. But I'll be back with something else tomorrow. So until then, everybody, have a good day. Please look after yourselves. It does matter. And I'll see you very soon. Have a good day. All the best.